All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Anna Bondriel. I work for Columbine Health Systems, but I'm part of the Behavioral Health Committee with the Northern Colorado Health Sector Partnership. Very glad that you all are here, and hopefully you're getting some really good information and inspiration. That's what our goal is today. So I'd like to introduce two lovely ladies who are going to present today. And I want to help people. How can I do that? So first with Brenna, Brenna Rush. She's LCSW and LAC. It brings 10 years of diverse clinical experience, including inpatient, outpatient, corrections, and with individuals transitioning from experiencing homelessness to housing. As clinical manager of permanent support housing at Housing Catalyst, she oversees the supportive services offered to residents and provides on-site crisis and clinical care. And then Miss Sarah,
Vendegna.
Vendegna.
It's like lasagna.
Right. Sarah is originally from Louisiana, where she received her bachelor's in psychology from the University of Louisiana. Afterwards, she went on to receive her master's in clinical psychology from Fort Hays State University. She's been a practicing clinician since 2014 in outpatient settings, working with clients of various ages, cultures, socioeconomic statuses, and mental health struggles. Sarah and her husband moved to Fort Collins in 2016, and she later established her private practice in July of 2020. In her free time, she enjoys CrossFit, baking, and time with her dogs, Lucy and Betty, and you made the pops.
I did.
Do you want me to hand those out?
I'll let y'all pick.
Okay.
It's my marketing strategy.
All right.
All right, good to go?
Yes.
We can start.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so, and I totally forgot that the bio that I submitted basically has all this information. So I'll just kind of touch on a couple things that weren't mentioned. So I graduated my bachelor's in 2011, master's in 2014. So practicing, this will be my 9th year of practicing, but as far as practicing in Colorado, I've been doing that since 2017, and that's when I got licensed in Colorado. I started my private practice in 2020. And so when I started my private practice, I also got licensed in Wyoming and Florida just to have further reach. Since telehealth was such a big thing starting with COVID, I decided to get my license in those states as well to just help. And then in my quote unquote free time, I do really love to volunteer. I think it's really important to be part of the community. So I've been on the board of directors at Child Safe, which is a nonprofit in town that provides therapy services to children who've been sexually abused. And I've been doing that for about 2 years. And then I'm also part of the committee that put on our event today, the Behavioral Health Committee, part of the Health Sector Partnership. And then I also try to at least once a year talk to graduate students and even some undergrad students. So I try to do events like this. Usually I just end up going back to Fort Hays State and talking to the students there because I'm still very connected to the department. Okay. So I just decided to kind of break my work history down for y'all just to kind of give you an idea of what my career path was like. So I started off with my first experience with direct care services, which was right after I graduated from my bachelor's. But before that, it wasn't as much direct service, but in order to kind of help me prepare for the field, I attended conferences. My dad's in family law, so some of the conferences he went to involved mental health, so I would go with him to those. We had what was called Psychology Day at my university. So once a year they would have presenters and I would go to those. I actually did my own therapy. I'm a big believer that in order to understand what our clients go through, we have to go through therapy ourselves. And then I also did undergraduate research. I absolutely hated it, but it looked really good on my application. I'm just not a research person. So that was all indirect. As far as direct service, just super quick. So right after I graduated with my bachelor's, I worked as a behavioral health technician at an inpatient hospital back home in Louisiana with adults. And then that was just for a few months because I got into grad school and then I ended up moving to Kansas. So then my next kind of experience was during my graduate years. I did my practicum at the outpatient clinic on campus at Fort Hays, where I worked with college students. It was just like 1 to 2 clients. The sessions were recorded, so you go over them with your supervisor. It's really horrible, but my supervisor was really great. And then for my internship, I worked at the inpatient hospital with youth. And I absolutely loved that experience. It was so incredible. It was a lot more intense as far as workload, but it was really great. And then my now husband and I decided after I graduated with my master's to go on to Massachusetts. That's where I got my first job after graduating. And I worked in a community mental health setting with all ages in an outpatient setting. And then after a couple of years, I ended up going to a group agency. We moved back to Colorado and I got a job at a group agency here in Fort Collins. And I was there for a couple of years. And again, I was doing outpatient work with all ages. And then I like to tell my clients that I don't do well with bosses because I talk back a lot. So that's when I decided to go into private practice, just to be my own boss. And so I've been doing that, and I work mainly with adults, but I have some adolescents that I work with, and I'll kind of explain a little bit later why I kind of narrowed it down to that population. And then the asterisks simply mean these are probably my two biggest growing jobs, where I learned about myself, I learned about the field, and I learned about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be as a therapist. As far as my realizations, you learn a lot about yourself in this field. You'll definitely learn that as you go in. In my internship, I was there for a semester. I absolutely loved the inpatient setting, and I absolutely loved working in a trauma-informed care facility. The reason I ultimately went into the job was I wanted to provide outpatient therapy to kids who've experienced sexual abuse. So this internship was exactly that, just inpatient. And I absolutely loved that format in that setting. I realized as a new therapist, I'm a highly anxious person. I am not ashamed to say that. And I needed the team support. I needed that feeling of, can I run into my supervisor's office and just scream at the top of my head and cry? And then I left the internship just feeling more curious about, okay, so I've worked with these kids in an inpatient setting. What's it going to be like to work with them in an outpatient setting? So I left my internship with that that feeling. And then I went to community mental health in Massachusetts. So I was the new young female counselor who wanted to work with kids. Of course, I get a ton of the kids. So I worked with a lot of kids, but I also worked with all ages. And so this was for 2 years. So this is where I got all 2,000 of my hours for my license in Colorado. And that's where I really learned that I actually don't work well with kids. I don't know what it is. It didn't click for me. And it actually wasn't too hard because I then saw that I actually did well with adults. I did see a lot of progress, and I was able to really enjoy the work that I did with adults. And honestly, in order to help people with trauma, it can be any age. It doesn't matter. So I still felt like I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. It's just that I worked better with adults. And then this was my first experience dealing with stress related to management. This is not just my field. This is all fields of work. We are all going to have bosses we don't get along with. This was just really stressful for me because I wasn't prepared for that. In my ethics course, all they did was say, if you have a question, go to your supervisor, or if you have an issue, go to your supervisor. But what happens when the supervisor is the issue is what I really struggled with. And no one talked about that in grad school. So I reached out to an instructor at Fort Hays that was my thesis advisor, and someone who graduated shortly after me who was practicing. And so I got a lot of support for that. But that was really challenging for me. The population that I worked with in community mental health was very, very hard. And this job was like the first moment where I was just like, there's so much need in our world, but unfortunately you can't help everyone. And that's a very important lesson to learn. We all go into this field to help, but there are just some situations that we just don't have a lot of say or a lot of ability to help, just because we can't control the world outside of the session. And so that was a big moment for me. And then also I burnt out. I'm a statistic. I want to say like so many clinicians burn out within their first few years. And I did burn out. I was so done. But I wanted to keep my job. I wanted to keep with it. So I got into therapy. I got onto medication and I started exercising. And that was still to this day, that is like my 3 most important things that I maintain. And I also made sure to maintain my boundaries. There's a phrase that they say in our field. What is it? Don't take your clients to bed, literally and figuratively. I didn't sleep for those first 2 years because I was so stressed about my cases, especially like suicidality. I would lose sleep over it. And so I had to prioritize myself in order to make sure that I was the best version of me. At the end of this, I was hesitant to go back. I don't even know why I wrote hesitant. I literally was like, I'm not going back. I'm done. I was looking at other jobs. But I'm really stubborn. I got a master's. I always wanted to be a therapist, so I decided I'm going to stick with it. So my husband and I left Massachusetts. We settled here in Fort Collins. I got a job at a group agency and I was there for 3.5 years. At this point in time, I already had my license, so I was good to go. I definitely felt more confident. I learned that I definitely work way better with individuals rather than systems. At this job, I was working with couples and families. That is not my thing. That is just, that's complicated. That's a lot of energy and I don't have that. I definitely developed a new appreciation for self-disclosure. They tell us in grad school all the time, and I don't know if they did this with you, Brenna, but they tell you, if you're going to self-disclose, you have to make sure it benefits the client and not just you. And if it benefits you, then you need to be doing some work. At the end of the day, our clients need a human. They want a human connection. That's part of the therapeutic alliance that we develop with them. So I self-disclose. I still make sure that they're the focus, but I don't mind sharing certain things about myself with my clients so that they know I'm human too. And it also really helps them know that, like, when I've done some stupid stuff in my life, I'm not going to judge them when they come into session with whatever. I definitely learned my worth as a therapist. I would say in my first 2 positions, you think you're not helping anyone ever. You think you're just like the worst therapist ever. After a couple of years, I definitely realized I'm making a difference. I am making an impact. The ethics and legal side, it's the worst, but we have to remember, we have to be aware of laws that are passing that are affecting our profession, but also affecting our clients. And we always have to be aware of ethics, because sometimes we find ourselves in these sticky situations where we need to consult with a colleague or even a lawyer. So that was a huge thing that I learned after practicing for a couple of years. And then ultimately, outpatient is my calling. I mean, it's solidified it for me. I'm really grateful I had this new experience, because after community mental health, I was just done. I really learned with the settings that I worked in that I wanted to make sure that the clients were as important as the therapists, and that the clients weren't just numbers. The clients weren't just reimbursement from insurance. They were actual people that we truly cared about. And I wanted to make sure that my colleagues felt that exact same way too. Because I have a huge heart for this field. I want to make sure the people that I associate with do as well. And ultimately, I realized I was too independent for a group setting, and that's why I left, because I just want to work with clients. I don't want to go to meetings. I don't know. I just don't have time for that. I just want to work with my people. So then I started my private practice. Huge learning curve in regards to the business side, something they don't talk to you about in school. Networking, marketing, and taxes. I really messed up my taxes my first year. That was rough. But that's definitely a huge learning curve. You have to have a lot of self-discipline. You also have to have a variety of support. I have my handful of therapists that I trust, that I consult with, but I also need my friends that are not in the mental health field that I can just hang out with and just chat with. You definitely get lonely, and you definitely feel a lot of uncertainty because it's on you. You no longer have an agency that has all the marketing bucks to bring people in. It's on you to bring people in. But the really great thing was I now have control over my time, my energy, and also my caseload. I'm now in a position where I get to take on the clients that I know I can do good work with versus, oh, fingers crossed, hope this goes well. You know what I mean? And you're not always right. That's a big one I've been learning. I definitely think that the more you practice, you can definitely develop an ego, let's be honest. But I'm not always right. Sometimes my clients know what's best for them, and I need to accept that and embrace that. And I also learn from them because of that. And then I have definitely taken on a huge role as an advocate and being active in the community. We are the voice of our clients outside of the session. In the session, I'm empowering them to have that voice, but outside of the session, I do a lot of education of what's going on in our world, especially when it comes to sexual assault, suicide, child abuse, things like that. I also am not afraid to call someone out for using a term that is obviously derogatory towards mental health, people struggling with mental health. My friends, I don't think like me because of that, but you know, deal with it. That's what I think we need to be. We need to be a voice for our clients in that regard. So just some quick questions that really just help me with my decision-making. First one, am I happy? Super simple, right? Not always easy to answer. Location, when my husband and I lived in Massachusetts, no offense to anyone who's from the New England area, but we just struggled making connections there, like personalities, we just didn't quite click. So we weren't happy there. Also, am I happy with the management that I'm getting or the supervising that I'm getting? Am I happy with my coworkers? Am I also happy with the client population that I'm seeing? Especially now when I know where my skill set is, I want to make sure where I'm working or who I'm working with meets that skill set to make sure I'm giving the best services. Does this position support my life outside of work? Am I working healthy hours or am I being overworked? The stress level of the work, like I said, I was bringing clients home. I wasn't sleeping because I was so stressed. And then also, are my boundaries being respected? If I say I'm not gonna be able to make a meeting because my family's in town, yet I'm getting a call that day saying, are you sure you can't make the meeting? I want my boundaries to be respected in that regard. And then are my needs as a clinician being met? Am I getting the support that I want? That was important for me for a long time, and I wanted to make sure I was having that support. Am I being provided with any sort of growth opportunities or training? Are my needs being met in regards to my time? If I block off that this is my lunch hour, is that being respected, or are you trying to put a new client in there? Is my energy being respected? Are energy needs being met? And then also my mental health. If I'm having a bad day, let me close my door and just see my clients. Don't put me in this position where I just need to like put on a fake smile and make sure everything's okay. Sometimes you have rough days as a human and as a therapist. Is the client's care the true focus? Like I said earlier, I want to be in an agency where they truly care about how we're treating our clients. And then, am I a good fit here? I'm from Louisiana. I'm a very loud personality. I'm sarcastic. I'm also very loving, and I'm very upfront. I want to make sure that my personality also fits with the setting, because if it doesn't, it's just not going to go well for all of us. And so I just want to make sure I can just be my true self in the setting that I'm in. Okay.
Do you want to click it forward for me?
You want to switch that? So you have control?
Sure. Yeah. Do that. All right. Well, I'm Brenna. I actually love, Sarah and I met coming together for this presentation. We never met before. And I actually love the partnership that they put us together because we are very different people, very different career paths and career goals. So I think that this was a really good matchup for us. I'm currently working for Housing Catalyst. So I work in housing, which is kind of a weird place to work when you're talking about behavioral health careers. I'm a clinician embedded in permanent supportive housing, helping people adjust to housing after they've experienced homelessness. So it's a new role, it's a weird one, but it does highlight that there is just so much opportunity out there in the behavioral health field in places that you wouldn't really expect it to be. My path, I will be honest with you, I kind of just stumbled through it. I wasn't exactly sure. I knew I wanted to get a psychology degree. I graduated CSU in 2011 with a psychology degree. And afterwards, I was still working at Walmart as a cashier. And my roommate was like, hey, there's this job at Work Release to be a correctional services specialist. And it has good pay and benefits. And I was like, I could probably do that. Sure. So I applied, I got the job, and that's when I learned about the criminal justice field and all the opportunities there. I also learned how to drive a bus. I didn't know that that was going to happen, but at 22 years old, I learned how to drive a bus. So my first job was at Larimer County Alternative Sentencing as a correctional service specialist. I was like front desk, security. That's what I did. The first thing I did with a psych degree. But then I started leading a group there for men, strategies for self-improvement and change. I started getting some clinical supervision for that, and I was like, all right, there's other options here. There's people doing therapy. Okay, let's see what happens. So I worked there for a few years, and then opportunity opened up with Larimer County Wellness Court program as a basic needs case manager. So I made the leap to basic needs case management for the Wellness Court program, which is an alternative to incarceration for individuals with mental health. This is really, it was the hardest job I've ever had. It was the most amazing experience I've ever gotten, the most exposure and collaboration I've had. I really think that that was, I mean, good, bad, and ugly. That was a beautiful time in my life for me to learn in my career. The big part that I want to highlight about that experience was that it had a lot of partnerships. So we were on a multidisciplinary team. I was working with judges, public defenders, DAs, probation, Summit Stone therapists, police. Missy, help me out. Anyone else I'm missing? A lot of people were in the room collaborating to help our clients. And again, it was another example of like, there is a lot that you can do to help people in the behavioral health field that doesn't necessarily have to be therapy. So that was a really big eye-opening experience for me, that there's so many ways that I could pivot and take my career. I graduated CSU with an MSW in 2017. I went to school, I worked full-time, went to school part-time, also had internships, all while doing this part of it. Don't recommend, can be done, was awful. But it was a good experience. I about halfway through my MSW, I realized I didn't want to be a therapist. That was not my passion. So, whoops. But what I did realize is that I chose an MSW degree for a specific reason, and that was because it's a generalist degree, and I was getting experience in policy, research, therapy, community work, all sorts of stuff. So I knew that I had opportunities to pivot when I wanted to, and that's important for me. Even in my career now, I have been a therapist for a while, and I'm still in a therapist role, but I'm also in a little bit more program development, and I'm working a little bit therapy, a little bit more macro work. So being able to have that in my career, those options is really important for me. After I graduated with my MSW, I started working on my clinical hours, and that was at Larimer County Community Corrections as a therapist in various roles there. And then I became a team lead for the women's inpatient treatment program. I spent about 9 years, just shy of 10, I think, with Larimer County, and got all sorts of experience from front desk security all the way up to being a team lead doing management experience. So I had so much opportunity, so much support working with Larimer County. And again, Larimer County, not the first thing you think of when you're like, I want to work in behavioral health. Wonder what's at Larimer County, right? But there's a lot going on there, and a lot of beautiful, innovative work happening. And I feel really lucky to be able to have been a part of that. I then took a position with Housing Catalyst, like I said, as the clinical manager. I've been there for about 2 years now. That is a pretty big leap for me to kind of go off on my own. So I learned a lot about myself there, but I also learned there's an entire other system operating in that world. Just like I said, like all of this had all these connections. Now I'm working in an entirely other system, and I'm seeing all these other opportunities and jobs and how they work together to help clients. So things that I learned along the way. Before I chose graduate school, I did the following. I researched careers that I thought were interesting. I literally Googled things all the time. Indeed, Google searches. I looked up not just like jobs, but I looked up, all right, well, if I wanted inpatient help, where would I go in the community? And then there's always like a careers page at the bottom, right? So I'd look up what jobs they had, and then I would look to see what were the credentials. What do I need to do to get to that job? And that's what kind of helped me explore and decide that I wanted an MSW instead of going a regular clinical degree, because I wanted options. Like I said, halfway through school, I realized I didn't want to be a therapist, but I did enjoy macro work, program development, and management and leadership. I feel it struck a passion in me during a management course that you could be the person that supports the beautiful clinicians that do want to be therapists for the rest of their lives, right? That is their whole passion. And I think there's a role in our field where you are supporting those clinicians to do their best work. And that's kind of what I am working towards now. Program development, I get real nerdy about that. I love it. I think it's cool. But I don't want to sit and do therapy every single day. That's why I categorize myself as a crisis therapist, because I'm more likely to do clinical work and run towards the screaming in my building than sit in an office. That's just how I'm made. Having a supportive supervisor to help you grow during the good, bad, and the ugly will make all the difference. So I think Sarah highlighted this in her presentation as well, that having a supervisor to support you while you grow will kind of make or break your experience in behavioral health. I was really lucky to have really supportive supervisors that let me try things, encouraged me when I was doing well, and also gave me hard feedback when it was ugly. And I mean, it can get ugly when you're growing and doing professional development, and in grad school, it's just not fun. So having that support was really amazing for me. And there's just a lot of ways for you to help people. So just find your passion and go with it. The best way that I could think about highlighting just how many career options are out there is by talking about the interagency group in Fort Collins. So the interagency group it's put on once a month. All of these agencies, I think there's about 30, come together once a month on a Zoom call. Thanks, COVID, used to be in person. And they collaborate. It's put on, I think, by Dr. Dan Dworkin with FCPD. He heads it up. We come in, we staff cases, we talk about what's going on in our agencies, what's growing, what's shrinking, what's struggling, how can we get support? And it gets us out of our little silos of medical and community and housing. Usually those things don't talk that easily, but interagency helps us all talk and connect and help our clients when we're in a place that is we're stuck. So this is the first page. There is Larimer County Adult Protection, Child Protection, hospitals, homeless services, connections, police, CSU, PD, and CSU student case management. There's also the entire health network where there's clinicians helping students. So that's even more options there. Foothills Gateway. The health district has so many departments in it and so many different weird branches off that are specific to mental health, substance use, co-occurring diagnosis, just public health, harm reduction, all sorts of stuff. A lot of criminal justice, UC Health, MCR, and Banner. The hospital systems have tons and tons of behavioral health positions in there that you wouldn't think of. There's also behavioral health positions embedded in your doctor's office. There's a social worker there. There's a therapist there, usually in your doctor's office. So even more. Probation. I did one of my internships for my MSW was with probation. I started out with the juvenile probation, and like Sarah, realized that I can't talk to kids, just have no idea how to do it. So I switched to adult sex offender probation, and that was much better. I don't know why, but that was really eye-opening to see also all of the options that were available for people on probation to get services. So if you just kind of start in one place and follow the thread of connections, you'll see how much is out there. I work really closely right now with the Crisis Assessment Center and the ER. When I send my clients to the hospital on an involuntary hold, they're the first people I call right afterwards to coordinate their care. So it starts with them, then they'll get a placement somewhere, and I'll start working with all the people that are associated with that placement to get them their care and then transition them back home. And then there's more people who are going to do their aftercare. So there's just, it's like a never ending web of career and behavioral health options. If you just look at one client's like care team, it gets really big. Summit Stone Health Partners is our big community mental health agency in the Fort Collins area. They have a lot of different options, and in fact, they are opening up Longview, which is going to have lots of inpatient treatment beds, crisis, detox services, all sorts of stuff. So that's going to be expanding, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities there. The VA, Veteran Services, lots of opportunities there. Really good benefits and good pay. Lots of politics, so you have to make sure you like that. Yeah, so lots of opportunities. And then just highlighting the types of careers: case management, outpatient. Care coordinators are my heroes. They find me placements. They figure out how to get people here and there. So it's not traditional behavioral health work, but it's very, very needed, and you need to be good at it. So love them. Peer services, Terrell at the panel highlighted that. That is an area that I think that we are respecting and incorporating more and more into our care with individuals. And it's very, very important to bring that piece into it. I see it expanding a lot. Sarah and I both don't like working with kids, so I can't expand too much on school services, but I know there's a lot there. In the kiddo realm and in schools, there's a lot of support and help that can go on there. So I just wanted to highlight that if you're getting into it and you're like, oh man, I don't know if I want to be a therapist, there's a lot that you can do to help your community. And I tell some of my staff that on the days that I can't quite figure out why I'm doing what I'm doing, I'll go out into my community and see people being happy and healthy and enjoying it. And I know that I am part of keeping my community happy and healthy so people can enjoy it. And that's enough for me on days that I can't quite get to the small pieces, feeling like it matters. On the hard days, I know I'm part of helping my community. And that's important for me. I love my community, and I want to see it healthy. So there's just a lot of options. That's all I had. Any questions? I think we've got about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes for questions or.
There's like some like misconception sometimes that you can't really get a job with just a VA. Do you guys did you guys find that it was like hard to get a job with just a VA, or do you guys have any advice for that?
I didn't think it was hard. I think there's a lot of jobs out there. A lot of them are care coordination, case management, kind of in the, they're not going to be very clinical, but they're very important. We need all levels of people in our field. At Housing Catalyst, we also have resident services specialists, so people that are around at the front desk to help residents 24/7. And that's crisis de-escalation. It's helping people work their TV. It's helping them learn life skills of how to keep an apartment. And that doesn't even require a bachelor's. I think it's a high school diploma, and you can enter the field and help. Yeah, I think there's a lot of options for a BS.
The job I had before grad school was I was a behavioral health technician, so that's on floor staff. And I really wanted that because that was direct. I wanted to actually interact with clients and really see what, you know, the mental health struggles that are out there. So there's both direct service options too and indirect, like case management. I mean, that is direct, but I mean, you're in an office versus being on like the floor of a hospital. So there is stuff out there. You just have to look for it. I really like that you went to the website. I just stepped to Indeed. I think I was just lazy in that regard. But yeah, just go to the careers tab. It's really crazy what is out there. And it's so needed. It is so needed.
Yeah. And, you know, if you look around enough and you dig around, there is work being done on making not just a job, but like being able to survive and make a living and have a living wage with a bachelor's. I firmly believe that you don't have to struggle to be in the mental health field financially, you know, like there's money in it, you can make money in it. A lot of people don't enter it because they're like, I'm never gonna make money. But if you look around, there is progress being made. So there is money in it, and there's money in a bachelor's level as well. So just kind of have to look. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hi, so you all talked about like some positions that you all got, whether that's during graduate school or after, and I'm just wondering, like, were those, when you all got those, were those like competitive? Did you have to kind of like fight for that position, or, you know, kind of do something to be that better candidate? Or was it kind of more of a ease to it?
I mean, I think there was always people that I was interviewing against, right? There was always a little bit of competition. I think when people are like, what do I say in an interview? I'm like, talk about communication. Like just, if you know how to work with a team and communicate well with the team and you highlight that, then you're probably okay in an interview. But I don't think that's necessarily true anymore. I think that there's a lot of jobs that we can't fill. That's my perception of where our field is right now, is that there's a lack of people in the field. We're not getting a lot of candidates because there's not a lot of people applying. I don't know where everybody went since COVID, but I don't know if it's as competitive as it was when I started in the field, but there's a lot of opportunity out there.
And in the jobs I worked, there was always turnover.
Yeah.
I mean, the burnout is legitimate. When I left, I'm almost positive I heard a comment about like, we're not surprised. Okay, thanks. I felt there was more competitiveness with grad schools. That I always heard clinical psychology programs were very competitive to get into, hence the reason why I chose a smaller school. I'm not a competitive person. I just want my degree. And I just want my education. So I went to a smaller school, and the smaller schools want you because no one wants to go to the smaller school. So then they'll give you in-state tuition. So look at the smaller schools, guys. Good to know.
Anything else?
Yeah.
I just have a quick question about networking. Like, of course, you can look at Handshake or Indeed.
Yeah.
Like, what's a good way to like network and kind of get like a more direct feel for like the job rather than just reading a.
I've had clients that want to go into the field. I tell them contact the agency and schedule a meeting. Just go right in there.
Yeah. A lot of times places will give you tours. I know that we
Yes.
give tours all the time. So if you contact agencies, they'll give you a tour and kind of tell you what's going on. Maybe you might be able to shadow a little bit, but yeah, I think your idea of going to conferences and going to things like this, going to the booth, getting business cards, following up, seeing if you can help. I think Misty highlighted it in her talk, like a lot of us are so excited when people are interested in our work that we're like, yeah, I'll sit down and talk with you. Do you want to go get coffee? How can I help? You know, like, yes, come on. I know that's one of my passions, like helping people get into the field and through the field relatively unscathed through grad school. It's hard. So if I can support you in that, that's something I'd love to do. So,
And
yeah.
I remember as a college student being like, no one wants to talk to me. Like I would go to conferences with my dad, or my dad would connect me with someone, and I would be like, no, they don't have time for me. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They do have time for you. Like you said, Child Safe gives a tour. They do 3 tours on Friday. Go check them out. Like sending a quick email like, hi, I'm getting my bachelor's in this. I'm interested in going into the field. Is there anyone I can speak to? They have people in their agency to connect you with. So in the position of being an undergrad, you do kind of have to start from scratch. I also went and talked to my professors. I just was like, you have office hours. I'm going to go talk to you. What should I be doing? What should I be looking at?
Yeah.
And also I went into individual counseling. I saw a therapist on campus at the health clinic at my university. And I would even ask her, like, where should I look? Who should I talk to? Things like that. My dad always taught me, when it came to fundraising, but I think also when it comes to just life, like the worst thing they can say is no. And it's true. Or the worst thing they can do is just not email you back. They're probably just busy. It's not personal.
Yeah.
So just put yourself out there. There's also, this is more just like people in the field. Facebook, when COVID happened, a local Facebook group started for Fort Collins therapists. And that like when it comes to being a clinician, that has been a networking dream come true. Hey, is there anyone out there I can grab coffee with? I want to start focusing on addiction, but I want to learn about things like that. So there's different opportunities for networking as you go through your career.
And as far as talking about experience in undergraduate, that's one of our next sessions. So if you're more of that
Oh, perfect.
information.
There you go.
Good transition, Anna.
I was gonna say one last thing, before we wrap up here, because I know it's about time, but, I forgot to put in my slideshow, but my, big piece of advice for people going through grad school is to, your internship, to me, is one of the most important pieces. So everybody's gonna get more or less the same classes, education, no matter what school you go to, you're gonna get the same information. But your internship is what's gonna prepare you for the field. I actually started an internship, decided this isn't giving me what I want, and I switched my internship halfway through to get the experience that I knew I needed for my career. So I really, I've had people be my intern and they're like, oh, I don't think I'm getting what I need. And I'm like, well, then we got to switch you. You know, this is really valuable time. You only get it once. So your internships are so, so important.
And in regards to marketing, I have cake pops with my business card on it.
I have regular business cards.
Yeah. And I have my info on there for a reason. Literally reach out to me. I love talking to students. I try to do like at least one interview with a student a year for a class or whatever. So please reach out. One's vanilla, one's chocolate. Okay.
Well,
Thank you, guys.
let's give a round of applause to Sarah and Brenna.
Appreciate it.